The National Growth Fund, a government-backed public offering fund targeting high-tech strategic sectors with tax incentives and downside protection, saw overwhelming demand on its first day, with online subscriptions selling out in under 10 minutes. The Samsung Electronics Union began voting on Friday on a tentative wage agreement that could avert a planned strike, with the deal widely expected to pass if approved by a majority of participating members. The U.S. and Iran are signaling progress in ceasefire talks, but remain sharply divided over the fate of Tehran's highly enriched uranium stockpile and freedom of navigation through the Strait of Hormuz. The government has unveiled a new investment fund aimed at funneling public money into next-generation industries. Now, investor demand surged from day one today, with enthusiasm also boosting the country's tech-heavy junior market. Our Kim Jun-ong has our top story tonight.
A government-backed investment fund offering tax incentives and partial loss protection opened to the public on Friday. The so-called Public Participation Fund gathers investors from the public and distributes them across multiple fund managers. The fund saw overwhelming demand on its first day of sales, with online allocations at major banks and brokerage firms selling out within 10 minutes. Branch offices also saw a rush of subscriptions, with firms expecting remaining allocations to be snapped up quickly. The strong response was seen as being fueled by tax incentives and the chance for ordinary investors to join a policy-driven fund. The program comprises 600 billion won, or approximately $395 million raised from the public, and 120 billion won from state funding. Subscriptions will remain open for 3 weeks through June 11th at banks and brokerages on a first-come, first-served basis. Investors are offered government-backed protection covering up to 20% of losses, along with tax deductions of up to 18 million won. However, only one-time investments are allowed, with funds locked in for 5 years. The initiative is part of the National Growth Fund launched last year to foster future industries. Its feeder funds are set to invest in sectors such as AI, biotech, and semiconductors, industries heavily represented on Korea's tech-focused Gov't-backed market. Enthusiasm over the fund appeared to spill over into the junior bourse on Friday, with the Gov't-backed closing up 4.99%. The market also triggered a buy-side sidecar early in the session after its 150 futures index jumped more than 6% in intraday trading.
Anticipation of fresh funds flowing into Gov't-backed sectors such as chips, robotics, and biotech appears to be boosting investor sentiment. The expected inflow is also seen as supportive for market liquidity.
Yet caution remains against excessive expectations, with actual growth and performance from the fund-backed companies needing monitoring. Kim Jun-ong, Arirang News.
President Lee Jae-myung has met with ILO Director General Gilbert Houngbo for a discussion on labor issues today. Hosting him at the Blue House on Friday, President Lee said he hoped that the International Labor Organization would play a major role in the AI era, where the new technology is expected to greatly affect jobs. He also asked for some advice on Korea's labor policy. The ILO chief, who's visiting Korea for its Global AI Hub launching event, highly appreciated the vision and said he hoped that the ILO could work together with Korea to maximize the use of AI on labor issues. He also noted South Korea's major contribution and active participation in the organization. With official campaigning now entering its second day on Friday, rival parties are spreading senior leadership across the country as a battle for support in key electoral battlefields ahead of the June 3rd local elections. Our Moon Hae-ryun has the details.
With 12 days to go until South Korea's June 3rd local elections, both major parties are splitting their leadership across the country to shore up support in key battlegrounds. The ruling Democratic Party is keeping its focus on the Chungcheongdo region, seen as a crucial swing vote. Party leader Chung Cheong-le visited the area for a second consecutive day, lending his support to candidates in Cheongju and Chungju, while floor leader Han Byung-do worked to solidify support in the traditionally friendly Jeollado region. The main opposition People Power Party is also fanning out across the country. Party leader Chang Dong-yeol canvassed southern Gyeonggi-do province, while floor leader Song Won-seok headed to Ulsan to rally conservative support in the south. Speaking at a party strategy meeting earlier in the day, Chang took aim at the Democratic Party, calling on voters to use this election to deliver a clear verdict on what he described as the ruling party's arrogance. In Seoul, the mayoral race remains one of the most closely watched contests. DP candidate Chung Won-ho is keeping safety at the center of his campaign, attending a memorial for a 19-year-old worker killed while repairing a platform screen door alone at Kui Station in 2016, before visiting a redevelopment site in Nongo district to press his housing agenda. Incumbent mayor and PPP candidate Oh Se-hun, meanwhile, is making his pitch across some of Seoul's most competitive districts. A structural defect discovered at a Samsung Station construction site continues to loom large over this whole race, with both camps trading accusations over responsibility. 문혜련, Arirang News.
Unionized workers at Samsung Electronics are now voting on a tentative wage and bonus agreement that could grant some employees hundreds of thousands of dollars in stock-based incentives if approved. Our Park Jun-han has the latest.
A union vote began on Friday for a tentative wage and bonus agreement between Samsung Electronics Union and management, with the outcome set to determine whether the deal officially takes legal effect. The company's labor union launched its electronic vote on Friday at 2:12 p.m., which will continue through to next Wednesday at 10 a.m. The agreement will pass if a majority of eligible union members participate and more than half vote in favor. If the proposal is rejected, labor and management will have to resume negotiations. The tentative 2026 wage deal includes a newly created special management performance bonus funded with 10.5% of agreed business performance earnings, with no ceiling on payouts. Beyond the bonuses, the two sides agreed on a 6.2% average wage increase. They also expanded welfare benefits, including a new company housing loan system worth up to 500 million won, or around $330,000. Brokerage firms estimate Samsung Electronics could post operating profits of around $200 billion this year. If that forecast holds, employees in the memory chip division could receive combined bonuses worth up to $400,000, including both the new special bonus and existing excess profit incentive pay. The special management bonus will be paid entirely in company stock after taxes. Even employees in non-memory semiconductor businesses, including the system LSI and foundry divisions, are projected to receive at least $105,000 in bonuses through the semiconductor division's share profit distribution program. Park Jun-han, Arirang News.
U.S. President Donald Trump insists that Iran will surrender its stockpile of enriched uranium to the U.S., which will then be destroyed. Our Jung Hae-rim tells us more.
The U.S. and Iran remain locked in opposition over control of the Strait of Hormuz and Tehran's nuclear program. Speaking at the White House on Thursday, U.S. President Donald Trump said Iran would not be allowed to keep its stockpile of highly enriched uranium and reaffirmed Washington's belief that it will be used for a nuclear weapon.
No, we get the highly enriched. We will get it. We don't need it. We don't want it. We'll probably destroy it after we get it, but we're not going to let them have it.
Iran, however, insists that its nuclear ambitions are purely for civilian purposes. According to Reuters, Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei has directed officials not to allow the enriched uranium, which is believed to total 440 kilograms, to leave the country. Iranian leadership reportedly believes that surrendering the stockpile would leave the country vulnerable to future U.S. or Israeli attacks. Before departing for a NATO ministerial meeting in Sweden on the same day, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said there had been some progress in talks, but called out Iran over its efforts to implement tolls for ships wishing to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. He added that any diplomatic resolution would become impossible if Iran goes ahead with a toll system. Rubio also expressed frustration with European allies who have refused to grant military base access during the conflict.
No one in the world is in favor of a tolling system. It can't happen. It would be unacceptable. It would make a diplomatic deal unfeasible if they were to continue to pursue that. So it's a threat to the world if they were to try to do that. And it's completely illegal. I don't think anyone is shocked to know that the United States and the president in particular is very disappointed at NATO right now.
Although little progress appears to have been made since a fragile ceasefire 6 weeks ago, a diplomatic window was still open. One of the peace talks' central mediators, Pakistan's Army Chief Azim Munir, possibly left for Tehran on Thursday for talks, according to sources from Reuters. U.S. officials indicate that the outcome of Pakistani-led meetings over the coming days will determine the fate of the ceasefire. 정혜림, Arirang News.
Reports say Chinese President Xi Jinping may visit North Korea next week for talks expected to touch on Pyongyang's denuclearization, as Washington and Beijing appear poised to resume their delicate power struggle just days after the U.S.-China summit. Kim Bo-kyung has this report.
Following meetings with U.S. President Trump on May 14th and then Russian President Putin on the 20th, now Xi is expected to travel to Pyongyang as early as next week to meet North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. In a joint statement, China and Russia advocated for a multipolar world and a new type of international relations, with a warning that the world faces the risk of regressing to the law of the jungle.
The world today is far from peaceful, with unilateralism and hegemonism posing profound dangers. The world faces the risk of regressing to the law of the jungle.
We will develop our bilateral cooperation and actively collaborate on international platforms where our colleagues, working closely together, are creating a strong foundation for sustainable development toward a multipolar world.
Now, eyes are on the possibility of Chinese leader Xi's visit to North Korea, with the Blue House releasing a statement on Thursday that the South Korean government is closely watching developments and hopes that exchanges between North Korea and China will contribute to peace and stability on the Korean peninsula. Many sources, including U.S. magazine Time, also reported that China's security and protocol teams recently visited Pyongyang for preparations for a visit, and that Xi Jinping may visit North Korea as early as next week. If Xi Jinping visits North Korea, it will be the first time in 7 years since June 2019. Many are expecting the agenda to include a possible restarting of North Korea-U.S. talks, as China has said that Xi and Trump discussed the peninsula issue during their talks. One expert said Xi could advise Kim to resume talks with Trump.
Even without mentioning denuclearization, a promise to reduce nuclear weapons and gradually lift sanctions could still be very favorable to North Korea. That's why there may be advice to consider meeting President Trump.
However, the expert added that there are still worries that it could strengthen cooperation between China, North Korea, and Russia, as they are seeing right now, as Putin said, a great opportunity to change the U.S.-led global order. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
And now on the export front, overseas shipments of South Korean beauty products saw a trade surplus of over $10 billion for the first time last year. Our Ian Jin covers this milestone.
South Korea's cosmetics exports set a new milestone in 2025. Data released from the Ministry of Food and Drug Safety on Friday showed a trade surplus in cosmetic products exceeding $10 billion. That's an increase of 13.5% from a year earlier. Data also showed that this surplus accounted for 12.9% of the country's overall trade surplus. Korea's cosmetics trade recorded its first surplus in 2012 at $90 million and has since shown steep growth. After a slight dip in 2021, the industry has seen a consistent upward trend in the size of the surplus. While the trade surplus broke the $10 billion barrier in 2025, cosmetics exports first crossed this threshold in 2024. Exports increased by 11.8% in 2025. South Korea's global ranking in cosmetics exports also rose, from third place in 2024 to second place last year, its highest ranking yet. In first was France with $24.3 billion, and in third was the United States with $10.8 billion. The number of countries importing Korean cosmetics reached 202 last year, an increase of 30 countries from the year prior, while South Korea's cosmetics imports decreased by 2.3%. A ministry official stated that South Korea has further solidified its position as a powerhouse leading global beauty trends. The primary product category driving the growth of K-beauty exports was skincare, which accounted for roughly 75% of exports, with facial packs and masks showing the highest growth rates within that category. Record performances in the cosmetics industry are seen to be driven by the also growing global popularity of Korean cultural content, like K-pop and K-dramas. 이은진, Arirang News.
The English version of the South Korean children's song Baby Shark has surpassed 1 billion streams on Spotify. Now that makes Baby Shark the first character intellectual property and children's song to join the platform's Billions Club, according to Pinkfong Company on Friday. The company added the achievement places the song alongside global hits by artists, including BTS, Blackpink, and Taylor Swift. Originally released as part of Pinkfong's children content lineup, the song's virtual success also led its dance video to become YouTube's most viewed video of all time, with more than 16.9 billion views. It's a Cannes Film Festival week, and at the 79th edition, attention continues to grow for Korean cinema through standout films and filmmakers. For more on this, we've invited our culture correspondent Jo Young-eun here in the studio. Welcome, Young-eun.
Good evening, Tommy. Great to be here.
Thanks for joining us. Young-eun, it's nearly the end of the Cannes Film Festival week. How has the overall atmosphere been at this year's? And tell us which films are leading the race to, win the prestigious Palme d'Or.
Well, this year's competition is shaping up as one of the most unpredictable. As the 79 Cannes Film Festival enters its final stretch, speculation over this year's Palme d'Or winner continues to grow. According to the Screen Daily Jury Grid, which compiles ratings from international critics on a 4-point scale, most competition titles have received mixed reviews, reflecting what many are calling one of the most polarized Cannes lineups in recent years. While films such as Poland's Fatherland, Japan's All of a Sudden, and the U.S. entry Paper Tiger have emerged as early contenders, critics say there is no still clear frontrunner for the festival's top prize.
This year's competition features many auteur-driven films, suggesting Cannes may be leaning more toward auteur-driven cinema. At the same time, with fewer genre films in competition, their chances of winning could actually be higher than ever.
As the festival concludes with the official closing ceremony on Saturday, the main competition awards, including the Palme d'Or, will be announced following selections from the 8 juries chaired by Korean director Park Chan-wook.
Well, speaking of Park Chan-wook, what does Park's role as the Cannes jury president mean any for Korean cinema? I mean, does it signal a broader rise in the global standing of films and Korean filmmakers at this year's edition?
Right, director Park Chan-wook made history this year as the first Korean filmmaker to serve as president of the Cannes jury. During the festival, Park also received the prestigious medal from the French cultural minister and reflected on how the perception of Korean films have evolved internationally.
Korea is no longer considered a peripheral country in cinema compared to 20 years ago. I wouldn't necessarily say Korean films themselves suddenly entered at the center. Rather, I believe the global film industry has become more open to embracing a wider diversity of films.
Meanwhile, Korean director Na Hong-jin's Hope stands out as the only Korean film invited to this year's main competition section and marks his return to Cannes competition nearly a decade after his last appearance. Blending science fiction and horror, the film is increasingly being discussed as a possible winner, drawing attention for its bold genre experimentation and cinematic style.
It started with thinking about how I could approach a crime story, and then how to make it feel different from my previous work. As I kept turning it over in my mind, the story somehow ended up in outer space.
Some analysts believe the film's unconventional storytelling and genre leave a strong impression on the jury.
I'm really curious to see how far the film maintains the intensity and immersion it builds at the beginning. If it manages to sustain that tension all the way through, I think it could turn out to be a truly remarkable film.
Indeed. Well, talking more about Korean genre films, Young-eun, could you elaborate more on Korean cinema, why Korean cinema continues to, captivate the audiences and gain more global attention?
Right, Korean genre cinema once again garnered global attention at Cannes through Kuntae or Colony, which premiered in the festival's midnight screenings. Widely credited with bringing Korean zombie to global audiences through works like Train to Busan, director Yeon Sang-ho returned with a new film portraying a catastrophic unreleased by rapidly mutating virus. Following its release in Korea on Thursday, Kuntae reportedly drew over 200,000 moviegoers on opening day, putting it on track for one of the year's strongest box office openings. International audiences have highlighted the film's signature large-scale global zombie action and distinct Korean genre sensibility.
I think Cannes tends to see Korean cinema through the lens of Asian genre films, as the industry has long developed around movies with strong and distinctive genre identities.
As Korean cinema gains momentum at Cannes, Korean films have maintained a strong presence throughout the years, and it continues to solidify its position as one of the most influential creative industries. Film critics say Korea's strength lies in its ability to merge genre filmmaking and strong social themes and emotional storytelling.
Since the 2000s, Korean cinema has built a strong tradition of genre films, achieving both commercial success and critical acclaim. Many internationally recognized works by directors like Park Chan-wook and Bong Joon-ho, including Parasite, can be categorized as genre films.
Many experts emphasize that Korean cinema is no longer simply participating in the global film industry, but is increasingly helping lead with years of accumulated global recognition and industry influence.
That is good to hear. Young-eun, thanks for coming tonight. I hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
We're looking at mostly sunny weather through the long weekend starting tomorrow. But on Saturday, light rain of less than 5 millimeters is forecast for the east coast of Gyeongsang-Bukdo Province and Jeju Island. A few sprinkles may also develop across the capital area and Chungcheong-Namdo Province. Overall, rainfall will be quite light, so outdoor plants should not be significantly affected. We'll continue to see warm weather and a rising temperature trend over the coming days. Daytime highs on Sunday will reach around 27 degrees Celsius, and by Monday, temperatures will climb to about 30 degrees. Tomorrow, UV levels are expected to be high in many areas, so don't forget to wear sunscreen before heading outside. Tomorrow, Seoul will start the day at 15 degrees, Chuncheon at 12 degrees, Busan at 16 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will get up to 24 degrees. Daegu and Jeju will both top out at 22 degrees. Looking ahead, rain is expected to move across much of the country again on Tuesday. Now here's a look at the weather around the world.
That is all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. From all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.